The World Championships are well underway, and Habs prospects and regular players alike are showing out. We'll be talking about some of their performances, including Hutson. Plus, TSN analyst Craig Button released his most recent draft rankings, and he has an extremely surprising name at number 5 going to Montreal, a name that a lot of you guys probably haven't heard much about, so we'll be talking about all of that on this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's news edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, alongside my co-host, Jesse Poirier, and another reminder, as always, to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, hit the notification bell. I haven't been asking you guys to do that, but we don't upload quite every day in the off-season, but if you don't want to miss a single upload, hit the bell. You'll be notified whenever we post our videos, and we know you guys love the content here. So, Jesse, let's get right into this. Number 1. Habs prospects, and maybe one guy that we'll talk about a bit, it's not so much a prospect, are showing out at the World Championships, namely Hutson and Sean Farrell. These guys are going nuts. They have so much chemistry. In Monday's game against Germany, Hutson connected with Sean Farrell on the power play to tie the game. Hutson walked the line with the puck with ease, opening up the shooting lane. Farrell potted it no problem. But then also, Jesse, something about Sean Farrell. He was on defensive missions at the end of the game when Team USA was up 3-2 to try and protect the lead. Well, let's talk first about that power play synergy. Hutson's been playing a bit of third-pairing defenseman for Team USA, which makes sense as a small 18-year-old on the world stage, or 19-year-old, whatever he is. But to see him have this power play chemistry, and the chemistry already with Sean Farrell on multiple occasions in this tournament, this is just incredible to see.
Absolutely. So nice to see Hutson just putting it on a tee for Farrell, kind of doing the opposite, kind of like the same as Suzuki, but on the opposite wing, right? Where he's getting that space and then just coming in, kind of that seeing eye shot. So just great to see, making it count when it matters the most on the power play. But as well, just, it's so nice to see Farrell being able to play in all situations, especially at the end of the game. And to be honest, Josh, while it's great to hear about this, that he's getting this responsibility at such a young age, I don't think either of us are surprised because Farrell, he really comes across as a really intelligent player. And we're not just saying that because he went to Harvard.
That's true. Sean Farrell, we even saw that in the NHL in his brief moment. Just another small-statured guy, but he really didn't feel that small. Maybe in his first NHL game, I remember mentioning that I thought he looked like he was getting tossed around, but he adjusted super quickly. Jesse, one big thing with Farrell that I've noticed in this tournament and with Montreal is he just knows how to get to his spots, and he knows how to play solidly. While he has the skills to shoot out of a cannon and score a bunch of goals, he also has the ability to just play solid when he needs to, and I think that gives you a ton of value when you have a prospect, not to mention a ton of value on a World Championship roster to ice this super young prospect who's barely played in the NHL in these dying seconds.
It's so true, and I find one of the things that stands out for me is just his positioning, his overall game awareness. He wants to affect the play. He's always right in the middle of it. So really nice to see him stepping up. And, I'd really like to see these two on a power play in the future for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, and isn't it awesome, too, that, even though Hutson, like we said, is a young guy, he's a small guy, and these small bodies, even though they're more common now, still on the world stage, not maybe as common as you'd like to see, but he's getting that power play time, and he is making it count. As one of the, he's one of these young guys in the tournament, and he is showing out. So, I mean, do you think that bodes well for his NHL power play ability? Because to me, I'm like, man, every single time I see Hutson on the ice, I'm more and more excited.
That's where he belongs. And I think it was so nice to see him with that play with Farrell because it shows that power play quarterback type of abilities, right? Where he's in a position where we know he has such a great shot. He could toe drag. He could take that play to the net himself, right? But he's seeing, okay, that Farrell's got a little bit of room. Let's feed him into some open ice and let him rip it home. But when you have a player like that, it just creates so much space for your other players on the power play just because you never know what he's going to do, right? He's so dynamic. You need to give him that space. You need to give him that respect. And that's one of the most important things that you do need on that power play is that space.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, let's move on from these Habs prospects to a Habs goalie. Sam Montembeault. He is shining in this tournament as well, Jesse. In Canada's shutout, he played really well earlier in the tournament, but they won a close game against Team Slovakia just recently. They won 2-1, and Samuel Montembeault saved 23 of 24 shots and held down the fort during the shootout. He was named player of the game due to his brilliant performance, and he's just getting started. Jesse, we heard that he was working with Carey Price and Paul Byron, a couple of Habs vets, to try and prepare him for this World Championship, and boy, it sure seems to be working.
no doubt getting the nod of approval from Carey Price after that one, watching on in the stands. I mean, that has to feel great for Monty for sure. And especially, too, that he's able to improve in this tournament off of some areas of play where that weren't his strongest. That being, the penalty shootouts, those type of situations. So it's so nice to see him taking advantage of this game experience at a high level to really improve on his game, on his craft, where it really matters the most. Making that clutch save on Martin Chromiak to keep that 2-1 win for Canada against Slovakia. So really nice to see him play and stand up when it matters the most.
Yeah, these weren't like soft shots. He had to make some insane saves, Jesse. And you got to think that Carey Price's help with not only his probably reflexes, but his positioning. That's a big thing Carey Price always had, right? He knew how to be there before the puck got there. And it really seems like Montembeault has improved on that. I mean, not just in this World Championship, but over the course of the season. I mean, do you see that? I mean, if he keeps improving upon that, do you see that as really helping his career even catapult further than it already is? Because honestly, if Monty can improve his positioning even like 10, 15, 20%, I think he's got a legitimate shot at maybe solidifying a number one spot somewhere in the NHL.
Absolutely. And that's why Carey Price was such a good goalie. And that's what makes him such a great goalie coach, to be able to kind of pass that on, being square to the shooter, anticipating that play, that economy of movement. All these things are just, you got to feel, if you're Samuel Montembeault, that you're just a sponge right now, just really wanting to take all of that in. So, he's really benefiting. He's really making the most of it right now. And I think just that increase of confidence, because he's such like a likable person, right? Like, he's very unassuming, kind of like Carey Price, and kind of humble, a little bit kind of laid back. So it's so nice to see him just to kind of get some of those wins, see his confidence kind of build from there. So I feel like that's his number one thing. Like, if he can translate this great play and all these great practices he's getting from this tournament into next year, I'm going to be really excited to see where that takes his play.
Oh, same here. Super excited to see Monty continue his dominance. And we got one more thing to talk about today. I don't really understand this from Craig Button. I mean, Craig Button, sometimes he's right on point, sometimes he is way off, but his most recent, I guess, mock draft had a very interesting name going to Montreal. And I'm not going to say it's an awful take, but it's one that I don't think any of us saw coming. He said that Sweden's Axel Sandin Pellikka is the best blue liner available and has jumped up to number 5 on his list, saying Sandin Pellikka is fresh off winning best defenseman honors at the under-18s. He had 11 points in 7 games. And Button said, quote, "He's the best defenseman in the draft, and he's just continuously showed me that. I watched the poise, the ability to control the game in every single zone, and to seemingly do it with a calm and ease that's eerily reminiscent of Sergei Zubov. He's not going to overwhelm you with his blazing skill or any blazing quality, but his brain is advanced massively." If we just have a look at Axel Sandin Pellikka, he has 5 points in 22 games in the Swedish Hockey League this year for Skellefteå. Yeah, Jesse, I don't know. Sandin Pellikka, he definitely is a good player. But to me, we had a discussion a bit before the show, and at number 5, when there's so much high-end talent available, yeah, I get it, he's a right defenseman, right-handed D, but at the same time, do you go for the defenseman that's probably going to be a solid D-man for the rest of his career, or do you kind of swing for the fences at the insane top-loaded talent in this draft?
I personally think Craig Button's kind of rattling a few cages here with this selection. Good for him for kind of, making his own thoughts on this draft and kind of being innovative and original with his own picks, all the same. But however, as we've mentioned, I think Montreal, we want to get the best player available. However, I feel like there would be a discrepancy of who Montreal feels the best player available at 5 and who Craig Button does. Of course, he did have a great tournament, and we see it's like not the first year where a player has like a great U18s, World Jays, and we definitely see that, just completely catapult them up the draft rankings. It's definitely a very fluid situation, but obviously I think we're definitely looking for that offensive, premium type of player. We have so many young defensemen. Of course, it's hard to go wrong picking a Swedish young defenseman all the same, but I think we know our main areas that we need to improve, and that's that, it's that firepower up front, and then also our goaltending. So I would have to pass on Axel at 5.
Yeah, and the last time the Habs went out and got the nice Swedish young defenders, Mattias Norlinder, who was very, very highly touted. Now, that was a third-round pick, to be fair. Oh, and Adam Engstrom, of course. Adam Engstrom is still coming up through now, and he actually looks good. Norlinder didn't quite pan out, but Engstrom looks like he very well could. And Sandin Pellikka, like, yeah, he looks awesome. But at the same time, Jesse, like, I kind of disagree with his rankings. Also, he has David Reinbacher. I could be wrong, but I think he had him at like 24 or something. He had some really good names very low. But to me, again, we're still on the Michkov train if he's available. I know Sharks fans are still looking at Michkov as well, and maybe Blue Jackets fans, but there's a lot of other talent. Even Zach Benson recently, Jesse, has kind of shot up my personal draft board, and I know a lot of other people have said that too. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I think we're both in agreement that Axel Sandin Pellikka might not be the best bet, but hey, it's one more name to keep your eye on. That'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. I don't really ask for that, but I think it'd really help you guys out to see our content the second it gets posted. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.